Hi everybody, this is Oksana and today we're going to be making an itty bitty little pendant like this. It's super tiny, the stone is only 7 millimeters, and I've made a little mini micro pendant tutorial before using copper wires, but I realized that those exact wires are hard to find now, so I'm making another tutorial, and this time I'm using sterling silver wires, which are a bit easier to find in that particular size. And before we get started, I just want to quickly say that I hope if you enjoyed this video, you'll consider subscribing to my YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed, and also consider hitting the notification bell, which will notify you of new videos, which I make every weekend. And sorry about my voice, I am a little bit sick here, so if it's a little crackly, that's why. So let's go ahead and get started making this extra tiny little pendant. So we're going to be using 24 gauge wire. It is dead soft, but I find that because it's sterling silver, it's a little bit on the firmer side. I don't usually find sterling silver much firmer or harder to work with than copper, but for this particular gauge, the really thin wire, I find that even though it's dead soft, it's firm enough. But if you were working with copper, then I would recommend have hard. However, Rio Grande no longer sells 24 gauge square copper and half hard. They only have it in dead soft. I have like a really old spool that I got from them back when they used to sell it, but that is basically why I am remaking this video, because I wanted to show it to you with something that a wire that you can buy and you can find now. And I don't do a lot of videos with sterling silver because I feel like it's better to try something out in copper, see how it works out for you, because sterling silver is more expensive. However, I looked up how much it would be to buy like 20 inches of this particular wire, and we're using less than 20 inches. We're using 3 pieces that are 3 inches long, so that's 9 inches. But 20 inches was less than $2. It was like $1 something. So now you also need the thin weaving wire. So you would need a little bit of that as well. But altogether, I believe that it would be like $2 for the amount of wire needed to make this pendant. So I think that even though it's sterling silver, it is pretty affordable. At the making of this video, of course. I don't know if in the future, if you're watching this video, if the price of silver has changed. But anyway, so half round sterling silver, also 24 gauge. That's the weaving wire that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to grab a tail end of it, and I'm going to grab my 3 pieces of wires, try to hold them kind of roughly in the middle here. And I'm going to do the flat side of the wire down and the half rounded side up. And as I hold the wire, I just kind of grabbed it in between my fingers there so it doesn't move. I'm wrapping this little tail end around and around to get a connection. I'm trying to get it nice and tight. If you're having trouble because it's such a short little end left, you can use your pliers. And then once it's like this and it's just really, really short, we want to just cut it. So if I just pinch this down, it will be hanging over the edge by just a little bit. It's not quite long enough for me to push it onto the other side and have it end on the other side. So it's best just to cut it and have it end on this side. Press down on that little wire end with our pliers. So you can see there it is there. Now we have, I guess it depends on what edge you're looking from, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna take this wire here because it's connected to my spool. I can't just wrap it around and around. I have to turn the whole piece. So I'm just gonna do that twice, and then I'm gonna go ahead and trim it as well. Now we have a nice little connection. Make sure when you trim it, it's on the same side as the other wire end. And we're just gonna press that down. I'm sorry for my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather here. So here they are on the same side. Here's our little wrap holding everything together. You can bring it tighter like this. And now you can use round nose pliers if you want, or you can use your finger to try to make a little curve in it. And the way that we want the curve to go is the bits with the wire ends on them. If you have those facing you and you curve, that's how you want it to be, because we're going to have our stone sit in there. And so I'm just going to kind of reinforce that curve a little bit on the thicker part of my round nose pliers, because my stone is small, but it's not as small as the smallest part. So you can always just curve it by hand as well. That's definitely an option, but some people might find this easier. So here's my tiny stone that I'm going to be wrapping. It's a tiny little oval shaped Welo Opal, and it appears to be about 7 or 8 millimeters. So it's definitely very small. And if I take my little frame here, now one thing to remember, if this ended up being too small, you can always open it up a little bit. So I'm gonna see. I think mine's okay. Sorry you can't see, but I have to hold the stone there for a second. So what I'm just gonna do real quick is with my pliers, just gonna press a little bit on the edges here, so they're a little bit less curved. They got a little bit too curved from those round nose pliers, and that'll kind of open them up a little bit as well. I'm just trying to get the best fit for my stone. All right, so I'm just gonna attempt that again. All right, so that's looking good. You want to bring these together at the kind of top center here above the stone, and just kind of use your finger to put a little bend in it so they come together like this. And then you can take your stone out and you can reinforce that bend with your pliers just to make sure it's good, like this as well. And you just want to make sure that all your wires, it's going to be 3 wires on one side, first of all, that they're not crossing each other, that they're still in their same order on both sides, and that they get here and that they all line up nicely. You have 3 of them here, and then 3 of them kind of stacked on top of them on the other side. This might take you a little bit if yours got kind of mixed together or are uneven. Like for example, mine, if I just pinch it shut, you can see that they're not stacked, and this side is a little higher, so I kind of have to adjust to stack it properly. But that's what you want to accomplish. And then once you've got that, you're going to grab your little wire end again of your thin 24 gauge half round wire that's attached to the spool. I never cut myself off a piece, mine's just on the spool. And I'm going to wrap it around. But if you were buying it just for this project and you needed a measurement, I would say that if you got yourself about 12 inches of it, that should definitely be adequate. It might even be too much, but it's better to have a little bit of extra. So I've wrapped it around a few times, and now I'm going to grab my pliers, and this little bit here that's kind of pointing at the back, I'm going to take it and I'm just going to put it through the gap here from the back to the front. And I'm just going to pull on it a little bit. And then I'm just going to trim that off. And that's how I'm going to finish off that wire end. And now what I'll do is I'll take the two first wires here, frontmost wires, and I will kind of pull them forward, and the other wires, we're just going to pull them back a little bit like this, and we're going to continue to wrap this, but we're just going to wrap it around just two wires now. All right, so once that is tall enough to be your bail, which that's up to you how big of a bail you're looking for. But for me, this looks to be good. That'll fit the necklaces that I use, and let me measure that. It's about 2 centimeters. No, it's a little bit less actually. Yeah, it's a little bit less. And then if we try to do inches, it's not quite half an inch. It's a little bit less. So I'm gonna pinch down that little end. We want the end to be up here. That'll make sure it'll be covered up. And we're just gonna press down on all of that, just like this. And now back here, so we have 2 wires from this side coming here, and then 2 wires from this side. And what you want to do is you want to separate them and bend them back to their respective sides like this. And now you want to take your bail, you want to just gently start to curve it, so that you get the shape of a bail. But then also what you want to do is the little ends of it, we're going to be tucking them through here like that. And so you want to get in there and press down like this. And while you're pressing down, if you just take these little ends and you just bend them up, then it'll stay in place. Your bail will stay in place like this. So then what you want to do is you want to take one of the wire ends. So I'm just going to do the left side. So here on the left side, I'm just going to take this. I'm going to bend it to the back like this. And this is just the perfect size because there's a little end left, which is just long enough for me to take it and for me to bend it into my little wire frame and then tuck it away, just pressing it inside like this. So essentially I've wrapped the wire around and the little end of it is in here. And that's how I have connected the bail. And now with this other wire, we're just going to trim it as short as we possibly can. Just be careful not to cut any other wires as you try to get in there. There we go. I'm just gonna press on this and adjust my bail because it bent itself a little bit to the left side. So this is what we have. So now we're gonna grab our stone. So now I'm gonna grab myself a different set of pliers. These are the Xuron tweezer nose pliers. And the ones that I was using are the Swanstrom pliers. And these are really great for everything. They have a really nice point here at the top. It's finer, but these ones can get like a little bit flatter at the top, if you know what I mean. And because they're a little bit wider and flatter, sometimes it makes it easier for certain situations. So I normally use the Swanstrom, but then for the part where I lock in the stone, especially such a little one, I find it easier with these. So what I would do is I would go to the back first and just grab, very careful to grab only the backmost wire. Now my stone is a little bit translucent, so see, I'm grabbing just the backmost wire and I'm bending it a little bit. You could bend it more if your stone wasn't as translucent as mine, but I don't want these wires to be super visible from the front. So I'm gonna lock in my stone, but I'm going to do it just kind of on the edges of the stone, like this. So here on the front, I'm gonna grab my stone and I'm just gonna pop it in. Sorry, it's hard to see, I know. There we go. So here's my stone. It's locked in from the back. And now we just have to lock it in from the front. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take, I noticed that one is a little thicker and one is a little thinner. And this one's the thinnest one. So I'm gonna take that and kind of wedge it in here. You can see between the frontmost wire and then the second wire there. You can see the little gap that started to form. So if you just kind of wedge it in there and go down to the bottom here and then just kind of turn your pliers a little bit to make a little bend. And then just do the same thing on the other side. And once that's done, if you need to like mess around, because one side is, you know, slightly different than the other, more bent, less bent, it's kind of up to you. And the back as well, like if you hold it up and you see the back wires, if your stone is also translucent, you can try to kind of move them a little bit, as long as they're still on the back and holding your stone in. So now we're gonna take the wire that is the frontmost wire out of these two wires here on the side. If you look at them, one will be more towards the front and one will be more towards the back, or if you follow them along, one will be this middle wire here and one will be the back wire. So you want this one here, and as a completely optional thing, if you wanted to twist any of these, I'm going to twist some of them for effect. I'll show you. But you don't have to do this if you don't want to. So if you wanted to twist, you would just hold the wire, because it's square. Square wires create a twisting effect. So you just turn the piece while holding the wire with your pliers, and it creates a twisted look like this. So now we're just going to take this and we're gonna bend it kind of right across our bail like this, and we're just gonna curve it, give it a little curve. Like this, and we want it to just kind of swoop across and go back here to the back. And now we're just going to take our next wire and we're just going to follow it along. Follow that first wire along. I like to maintain a little bit of spacing. It's up to you if you want it to be just right up against the wire or have a small amount of spacing. I personally like the look of a small amount of spacing, but it's up to you. And just follow it along, go into the back. And then here on the side, just gonna trim those and leave a little end like this, or two little ends rather. Then we're gonna take them and we're just gonna turn them inwards. You can do one at a time, that might be easier, but we're just turning it in and then just pressing it down in there in that little gap. So just press them down, and the wire ends have been tucked away. And if you see them from the front, you sometimes can, you just want to push them upwards a little bit. Now, we'll tend to hide them more. You can also try to flatten them a little bit. Now, sometimes after you do this, this portion gets a little bit messed up, so I like to just, it's usually this top wire. If I just press on it a little bit, just kind of gently, it fixes it up. So now this next wire is going to be the frontmost wire, and I'm going to twist it. Again, totally optional. Now, in my very original side swept design like this, the wires, these both of them, kind of swooped across this way, like this. Now, if we do that, what's going to happen is it's going to come here, and you're going to have to tuck it away here on the back. Now, there is room, technically, for one wire at least, but there isn't a lot of space here. So it might be tough because this is such a small pendant. So I'm just going to show you an alternative to do with the wires that I like to do when there's not a lot of space. What I like to do instead is I like to take it, just kind of put a gentle little curve in it so that I can get it to here, to this gap, and then I'm going to pull it through from the front to the back like this, and then here it is here on the side, and then it's going in here. So you can kind of hold it if you don't want it to move out of place, and then just bend it up here, and then we're just going to trim ourselves a little wire end. And this time the wire end, instead of getting tucked inside, what's going to happen is the little wire end is just going to go here, and it's going to be facing the wire, the original wire that it came from. It almost makes like a little loop, if you can see. So when I press it down, the loop closes and the wire end touches the wire. If yours sticks out, just push it back this way, but it gets covered up by the wire itself. And then the same thing with this. First I just kind of bend it into place, into the shape. And then after that, you just put a curve into the spot where, or even an angle, because if you know where it's going to bend, that's like where that angle is going to go naturally. That way when I pull it through, it just goes right there to that little angle that I bent. And now I'm just going to hold it with my finger and bend this forward. And we're just going to trim. And close up that little loop. Just like that. So now you get the same side swept design, but these two wires, instead of going all the way across, they're just staying on this side. And I think it still looks nice, and it makes it a little easier if you don't have a lot of space in here to be tucking in wires. So here is the completed pendant. I just put it on a little chain just to kind of show you of what it would look like. It's definitely very dainty, very small little mini pendant. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it was helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!